He had the mansion, the cars, the private jet, a CEO worth hundreds of millions, admired, respected, feared. But behind the glass walls of his corner office he sat alone. No laughter, no warmth, just deadlines and dollar signs. Every day felt like a meeting. Every smile, rehearsed. And every success only made the emptiness louder. Until one rainy night, a simple question from a flower-selling child stopped him cold. "Mister, are you happy?" It wasn't a reporter. It wasn't a therapist. It was a child. And that one question shattered everything he thought he knew about life. But what happened next changed everything. The morning sun pierced through the tall windows of his penthouse. Everything was in its place, not a single object out of line. A maid quietly adjusted a flower vase, careful not to disturb the silence. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his cufflinks, dressed in a custom-tailored navy suit. The reflection stared back, flawless, but empty. His driver waited downstairs, engine running, a black Rolls-Royce gleaming under the light. Inside, leather seats hugged him, the scent of wealth lingering in the air. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The world already listened to him. His phone buzzed. Emails. Board approvals. Event invitations. Charity galas. Investor brunches. "Approve the merger," he texted back with one hand, eyes scanning the skyline. From the outside it was perfect. But inside, a growing silence gnawed at him. He arrived at the company's headquarters, glass, chrome, and perfection. Employees bowed slightly as he passed. No one dared to speak first. They respected him. Or maybe, feared him. He stepped into the boardroom. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. Charts flickered on screens. "Profits up 18%, said a voice. He nodded. No smile. Just numbers. At lunch he dined with other CEOs. They laughed at expensive jokes. Boasted about yachts and private islands. He forced a smile. Checked his watch. And quietly paid for everyone's meal. That night, he hosted a black-tie fundraiser in his marble estate. Hundreds of guests arrived in limousines. The champagne flowed. The pianist played. He moved through the crowd, shaking hands, posing for photos, answering shallow praise. A woman in red whispered, "You always look so composed. What's your secret?" He raised his glass, smiled politely. "Practice," he said. They laughed. But it wasn't a joke. Later, alone in his room, he took off the suit. He loosened his tie, sat on the edge of his bed, and stared at nothing. Silence. Heavy and loud. He walked toward the balcony. City lights blinked like stars below. Cars. People. Noise. But none of it reached him. He remembered something from his childhood. A night when his mother worked late and he had no dinner. He remembered the feeling of his stomach growling, and her apology when she came home with just a bag of rice. She hugged him so tightly that night. Told him he would never feel hunger again. And he didn't. But now, he felt something worse. A hunger that money couldn't touch. His assistant's voice echoed from earlier that day. "You've been nominated for Businessman of the Year. Do you want to attend the ceremony?" He had said yes. But now, standing there alone, he didn't even remember why. His eyes moved across the empty king-sized bed. The cold sheets. His phone buzzed again. Another meeting. Another event. Another obligation. He threw the phone aside. For the first time in years. He sat in the dark. And let the silence stay. The rain had picked up. Not a storm. Just steady, cold, and quiet, like the city had lowered its voice. Marcus leaned back in the rear seat of his car, eyes half open, his mind somewhere far from the streets they passed. He had asked the driver not to speak, not to take calls, just drive. He didn't want to go home. He didn't want to go anywhere. But he couldn't sit still either. The car turned down a narrow street, unfamiliar, quiet, a shortcut the driver sometimes took. A broken neon sign flickered against the wet pavement. Then the car slowed to a crawl. Marcus looked up. A small figure stood ahead, just barely under the glow of a street lamp. The driver leaned slightly forward. "There's a girl, sir." "Should I?" "Stop," Marcus said. The car eased to a full stop beside the girl. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. tiny, thin. Her hoodie soaked through. A bundle of small flowers wrapped in damp newspaper rested in her arms. She didn't move, didn't wave, just stood. Marcus rolled down his window. The air was sharp with rain and asphalt. The girl stepped forward. Not shy, not aggressive, just present. "Would you like to buy a flower, mister?" she asked. Her voice was light but clear, almost like she'd rehearsed it. Marcus blinked, unsure how to respond. This wasn't the kind of city street interaction he was used to. No urgency, no desperation, just a simple offer. He reached for his wallet. "I don't need a flower," he said, pulling out a folded bill. He held it toward her. But she didn't take it. She looked at the money for a second, then looked back at him, and shook her head. Marcus frowned, not in irritation, just confused. "You don't want money?" he asked. She smiled slightly. "I'm not asking for it." He was silent for a moment, then asked, more curious than anything, "Then why are you out here?" She didn't answer right away. Instead she looked up at him, really looked, straight into his face like she was searching for something. And then she asked, "Are you happy?" The rain kept falling. The street lamp buzzed faintly overhead. The car engine hummed low in the background, but all of it faded. That one question landed like a brick in Marcus's chest. He didn't speak, didn't blink. He just stared at the child in front of him, small, soaked, and still waiting. Not for his money. For an answer. Marcus stood still. The question, "Are you happy?" still echoed in his mind. He hadn't answered, because he couldn't. The little girl didn't seem to mind his silence. She just stood there looking at him with that oddly calm expression. Like she didn't need an answer, just wanted to ask. Marcus finally cleared his throat. "What makes you ask that?" he said. She shrugged. "People with sad eyes usually aren't." He chuckled nervously, glancing down. "You say that like it's a fact." "It is," she said simply, like she was talking about the weather. Marcus studied her for a second. She was soaked from the rain. Her hands were red and cold. Her hoodie was clearly too small for her, stretched tight across her shoulders. But her face was steady, bright, almost light. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily." "Lily," he repeated. "Pretty name." "Thanks. Grandma picked it." "Where's your grandma now?" "At home. She's not feeling well today." Marcus hesitated. "And your parents?" She paused. "I never met them." That answer landed softly, but it hung in the air like fog. Lily didn't flinch. She said it like a fact, not a tragedy. "And you're out here, alone?" Marcus asked. She nodded. "I only come out when she's sleeping. I don't stay out long." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're what, 8? 9 next week?" He was about to say something about how dangerous this city could be, how she shouldn't be walking alone at night, but stopped. She wasn't asking for advice. She wasn't even asking for help. She was surviving, and doing it with more composure than some adults he knew. "You said she's sick," Marcus said softly. Lily nodded. "She coughs a lot. Sometimes she gets dizzy. We don't have money for the doctor." Marcus shifted his weight, suddenly unsure what to do with his hands. She noticed. "It's okay. I sell flowers to help with food. Maybe one day, we'll have enough for medicine too." That smile again. Still calm. Still unbothered. Still strong. Marcus looked at the flowers wrapped in soggy newspaper. "Do you like doing this?" She laughed. "Not really. My shoes get wet. But it's better than doing nothing." He smiled slightly. "In school? You go." She shook her head. "Grandma tried to teach me at home. But she gets tired. I read old books we find." Marcus felt a lump rise in his throat. It wasn't just pity. It was shame. For how little he'd thought about the people outside his world. The ones who didn't have calendars or meetings or multi-million-dollar problems. Just a girl. Trying to help her grandmother. Trying to learn from old books. Trying to sell flowers to strangers in the rain. "You ever wish things were different?" he asked quietly. Lily shrugged. "Sure. But wishing doesn't do much. I just try to make today a little better than yesterday." Marcus looked at her again, This girl, 9 years old, teaching him more in 5 minutes than most people had in years. She held out a flower. "This one's for free," she said. "You look like someone who forgot what pretty things feel like." He took it slowly. The petals were damp. The stem was bent. But it was the most honest thing he'd held in a long time. "Thanks," he whispered. She smiled and turned to walk away. But then stopped. Looked back at him one last time. "You should smile more," she said. "You'd look less lonely." Then she was gone. Disappearing into the fog, her footsteps light, her head held high. Marcus stood in the rain a little longer than he meant to. Flower in hand. Face wet, not just from the rain. And for the first time in years, he didn't rush to go anywhere. Marcus couldn't sleep. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that made you feel like something was missing. He lay on the bed fully dressed. The flower Lily gave him resting on the nightstand. The petals had begun to curl. But he didn't throw it away. His eyes stayed open. And his mind wandered. Backward. It was winter. Bronx. 1994. He was 9. The heat in their apartment had broken again. His mom had piled every blanket they owned onto the twin mattress they shared. She wrapped herself around him like a human shield. He could still feel her heartbeat in his ear. Still hear her humming softly, off-key, tired but warm. That night, dinner was white rice with a sprinkle of salt. It wasn't enough. But she made it sound like magic. "There's flavor if you use your imagination," she said, grinning through chapped lips. He grinned back even though he knew she was lying. But her lie made the hunger easier. Most nights she worked 2 jobs. A laundromat in the morning. A diner kitchen at night. When she got home, her back ached and her fingers were red. But she always checked his homework. Always kissed his forehead. Always smiled, even when her eyes looked exhausted. He remembered the shame. The free lunch line. The way other kids looked at his shoes. Crack. Laced with frayed twine because the original laces broke. He remembered pretending not to care. Because if he acted like it didn't matter, maybe it wouldn't. There was a time their landlord threatened eviction. He had come home early from school and found his mom crying at the kitchen sink. It was the only time he ever saw her cry. She wiped her tears quickly, turned and said, "Don't worry, baby. We're gonna be okay. We always are." She packed them that night. 2 backpacks. 1 blanket. And they moved in with a church friend for a month. He remembered sleeping on a couch next to her. Her arm wrapped around him like she was holding the world together. Even in the hardest times, she kept him dreaming. "You're going to college," she'd say. "You'll wear a suit. You'll have a real desk. People will listen to you." And he believed her. Not because the world said so, but because she said so. She believed enough for both of them. On his 10th birthday, she bought him a book. Not a toy. Not candy. A used book, How to Build a Business. He still had it. The pages smelled like dust and ambition. She told him, "One day this'll make sense." And it did. Years later. Marcus blinked. The image of her, young, tough, kind, still burned behind his eyes. She never wore makeup. Never took a vacation. But she gave him everything she had. Everything. Not in dollars. But in decisions. In late nights. In early shifts. In soft hands that never stopped working. He sat up. Walked to his closet. Opened a small black box on the top shelf. Inside, a folded paper. A note she left the day he got his college acceptance letter. "I knew you would, baby. Now go build something beautiful." He hadn't read it in years. But the words still made his chest tighten. Not because they were sad. But because they were true. That was the woman who raised him. That was the life he came from. And for years he carried that fire in his chest. But somewhere, along the way, he stopped looking back. The city lit up beneath Marcus's feet. From the balcony of his penthouse, it looked like a galaxy flipped upside down, glowing, shifting, endless. It used to make him feel powerful. Now, it just felt far away. He held the old photo of him and his mother in one hand. The flower from Lily, now dried and shriveled, sat beside his empty coffee cup. For the first time in years he had no meetings scheduled. No urgent calls. No assistant waiting for his approval. He had cleared the day. But not because he needed rest. Because he needed quiet. Not the kind that echoed. The kind that revealed things. He walked back inside. The place was spotless. Designed to impress. Cold marble. Black leather. Nothing personal. No framed photos. No messy corners. No signs of real life. Just luxury. It hit him like a slow punch in the chest. He had designed his life to be untouchable. Impenetrable. And now it was completely untouched. He sat down at the edge of his custom Italian sofa and opened his email. Hundreds of unread messages. Mergers. PR proposals. Event invitations. He clicked none of them. Instead, he opened his calendar. From January to December, color-coded blocks. Back-to-back meetings. Strategy calls. Award ceremonies. Investor retreats. Board presentations. More. And more. And more. Every square full. Except one. The day his mother died. Blank. He had left it empty on purpose. And then never looked at it again. Now it stared back at him like an accusation. He walked over to the full-length mirror. Stared at his reflection. Suit. Clean lines. Expensive haircut. Perfect posture. But the man looking back at him didn't look alive. He looked built. Like a product. He touched the glass. Cold. Who did I become? He whispered. And for a long time, no answer came. He remembered the board meeting last month. How his COO had warned him against starting a charity division. It dilutes the brand, she'd said. We're not a charity. We're a machine. And Marcus had nodded. Because that's what he built. A machine. Polished. Profitable. Efficient. But also empty. He sat down again. Mind racing. Chest tightening. He thought about the last conversation he had with someone, without checking the time. He couldn't remember when. He thought about the last time he laughed and meant it. No clue. The last time he hugged someone. The last time someone hugged him without reason. The last time he cried. He couldn't remember any of it. He had erased feeling from his life so gradually, he never noticed it disappearing. Now all that remained was achievement. Trophies. Press. Wealth. But no warmth. He picked up his phone. Scrolled through his contacts. There were hundreds of names. CEOs. Politicians. Venture capitalists. Publicists. Reporters. But not a single person he could call at 2 a.m. Not one he could confess to. He had built the highest tower. And now he was standing at the top. Alone. He closed the phone. His eyes fell on the little flower again. Shriveled. Still fragile. Still holding on. Like a mirror of what he used to be. He thought of Lily. How she smiled despite everything. How she walked through the rain like she had somewhere to go, even if it was just home to a sick grandmother and an empty cupboard. He thought of her question. Are you happy? And finally, he answered. No. He said it out loud. Soft. Honest. And the truth of it cracked something inside. No. He wasn't happy. He was successful. Respected. Feared. But not happy. Because somewhere between the laundromat and the penthouse, he had lost the thing that made him human. Marcus didn't go to the office the next morning. He didn't reply to his assistant's messages. Didn't check his email. Didn't answer the board's calls. Instead, he walked the same side street where he had seen Lily. Same time. Same jacket. Same city. But everything felt different. This time he wanted to be there. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet. The flickering street lamp buzzed faintly overhead, like it remembered the night before too. She wasn't there. Not that night. Not the next. Not the third either. Still he kept coming. And on the fourth night, she appeared. Same small frame. Same hoodie still too small. Same handful of flowers and soggy newspaper. She didn't recognize him at first. She walked up casually, offered a flower. $2, she said with a smile. Marcus smiled back. Prices went up? She squinted. Then blinked. Oh, it's you. He nodded. You remembered. Not a lot of people stop twice, she said. They stood in silence for a moment. Marcus broke it. How's your grandma? She had a dizzy spell yesterday. But she's okay now, Lily replied. You live nearby? She pointed vaguely down the street. Apartment above the pawn shop. Second floor. He made a mental note. Are you still selling for medicine? Lily nodded. And food. And a heater. Ours is kind of dead. Marcus's throat tightened. He didn't ask more. Instead, he said quietly, I was hoping I'd see you again. She tilted her head. Why? Because, he paused, I wanted to know if you ever got that flour money. She grinned. I bought eggs and rice. He smiled back. Good choice. Then, he reached into his coat and pulled out a business card. Black matte finish. Clean lettering. No logo. Just his name and a private number. This is for you, he said. If anything happens. If you need help. Anything. Call. Lily looked at the card like it was made of gold. But, why? He thought for a second. Because someone once did the same for me. She stared at the card. Didn't take it immediately. What do I have to do in return? Nothing, he said. I just want you to be okay. She slowly reached out and took it. Held it like it might disappear. Thanks, she whispered. He turned to leave but paused. Lily, he said over his shoulder. Do you like school? She hesitated. I don't know. Never went to one. He nodded. Then left. That night, he called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. A social worker named Helen. Someone who used to work with his mother. She picked up after 2 rings. Marcus. Hi, Helen. She sounded surprised. It's been over a decade. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, he said. I just need help finding someone. A child. Pause. You planning to adopt? She teased. No, he laughed softly. But I want to give her a chance. He told her everything. About the girl. The rain. The flower. The question. Helen listened without interruption. Then said, You sound more human than I've ever heard you. I don't know what I sound like, he admitted. But I think, I finally want to do something that feels right. Over the next few days, Helen helped track down records. Lily had no school ID, no medical file, no official guardianship. But she existed, just outside the system. Invisible to most. Except to him. And now, he wanted to change that. He didn't want to rescue her. He didn't want to turn her into a PR story. He just wanted her to have the things he didn't. Stability. A desk. A backpack. A place to sit and raise her hand. He funded the medical checkup quietly. Arranged food vouchers anonymously. Paid 2 months' rent in cash through a trusted assistant. When Lily found a bag of groceries outside their door, she assumed it was from the church. He never said otherwise. That weekend, he visited a small private elementary school on the other side of the city. Not fancy, but clean, safe, warm. He met with the principal. Explained the situation, vaguely. She doesn't have papers? The principal asked. Not yet, Marcus said. But you'll sponsor her? Every step of the way. The principal paused. Why this girl? Marcus didn't hesitate. Because when she looked at me, I saw the version of myself I used to respect. That night, back in his penthouse, Marcus placed the school application folder on his desk. And for once, the stack of documents didn't feel heavy. Felt right. He looked out the window. The city still glowed. Still shifted. But for the first time it didn't feel far away. It felt like somewhere he could walk into. Somewhere he could change. Marcus stepped into the boardroom 10 minutes early. That never happened. He usually arrived last. Power move. Everyone noticed. Today he just didn't want to waste time. The glass doors closed behind him. The table was long. Polished to a shine. 12 chairs. Only 5 filled so far. His CFO looked up, confused. "You're early." Marcus gave a small nod. "Something new I'm trying." One by one the rest arrived. Board members, shareholders, legal, PR. They greeted him with rehearsed smiles. No one asked how he was. They never did. The meeting began as usual. Numbers, projections, margins, stock trends. But Marcus wasn't really listening. He kept glancing at a folder in front of him, thicker than the rest, labeled Community Investment Initiative. When the final chart clicked off the screen, Marcus cleared his throat. "There's one more thing." Chairs shifted. Eyebrows raised. He opened the folder and passed out copies. "I'm launching a pilot program," he said. "Educational access for underprivileged kids in the city." Silence. The CFO blinked. "You mean a donation?" "No," Marcus replied. "A structure. A system. Funding. Follow-up." He leaned forward. "It won't be a PR stunt. It'll be quiet. But real." One board member scoffed. "And what's the expected return on this?" Marcus paused. "Not everything is about ROI." That landed heavy. A silence fell over the room. Then the COO spoke. "Marcus, we admire your passion. But this isn't who we are. We build empires, not charity programs." He looked at her. "No. You build systems to profit. I built this company." Another member added. "And with all due respect, Marcus, is this really about kids? Or is this about you needing something to feel good about?" A few people shifted uncomfortably. He stared at the man. Then said slowly, "If I'd done this to feel good, I would have called a press conference." The room went still again. Then the legal advisor spoke up. "This could raise liability questions. Press might dig into beneficiaries. It's a risk." "So is doing nothing," Marcus said calmly. The PR head tried a softer tone. "Marcus, even if your intentions are pure, the headlines won't be. They'll paint you as emotional, or unstable, or worse, distracted." He exhaled slowly. "I am distracted. For the first time in years, by something that actually matters." They didn't know how to respond. Not to this version of him. After the meeting, his CFO caught up to him in the hallway. "Hey," she said. "I know this means something to you. But you're throwing yourself into it fast. Too fast." He looked at her. "I've thrown myself into things for 20 years that never changed a life. I can afford to go fast on this." She hesitated. "Just, don't lose your balance." "I already did," he said. "I'm just trying to find it again." Later that night he got a call from his cousin, a venture capitalist in San Diego. "Hey man, what's this I hear about you funding a school or something?" News had spread faster than he thought. Marcus sighed. "Not a school. Just helping someone." "You sure you're okay?" "I'm fine. Because this sounds emotional. Un-Marcus-like." There was again. That subtle accusation. That being human made him less sharp. "I'm just making different decisions now," Marcus replied. "Well," the cousin said, "if you need to unload any assets, I have buyers." Marcus almost laughed. They thought he was losing control. And maybe he was. But this kind of chaos felt right. Then came the call from his father. They didn't speak often. His father had always believed in grit. No excuses. No softness. "You're messing with your legacy," the man said bluntly. "You built an empire. Don't tear it down chasing ghosts." Marcus held the phone tighter. "I'm not chasing ghosts," he said. "I'm just tired of ignoring the living." The line went silent. Then his father said, "She's gone, Marcus. You can't fix that." "I know," he said. "But I can honor her." And that was it. Everyone around him thought he'd cracked. Too soft. Too impulsive. Too off-script. But Marcus wasn't breaking down. He was breaking open. And it hurt. Because when you've spent decades building walls, the first swing of the hammer is always loud. It was supposed to be simple. An envelope. A letter. A scholarship. No cameras. No reporters. No corporate logo stamped on a banner. Just a quiet moment in a small elementary school gym. Marcus had insisted on it. No speeches, he told Helen. No audience. Just, let me see it happen. Helen, the social worker, arranged everything with the school. One Friday morning she called him. 2 kids are getting their letters today. Quiet delivery. Principal will hand them out. He cleared his schedule without a second thought. The school was tucked between a rundown corner market and a liquor store. Faded paint. Cracked sidewalk. A chain-link fence wrapped around the yard like a tired hug. But the walls were covered in paper stars. Each star had a name. Marcus paused at the entrance. His suit looked ridiculous here. Too clean. Too pressed. Too far from the world inside. He loosened his tie. Helen met him near the office. Just 2 today, she said. Lily's still waiting on her placement. Marcus nodded. I just want to watch. They slipped into the back of the small gym. No one noticed. Just a handful of teachers. A dozen kids sitting on the floor in a loose circle. Shoes scuffed. Jackets a size too big. Voices small, eyes big. The principal, a woman with silver hair and soft eyes, stepped forward. Today, she said gently, we're giving something special. Something that doesn't happen often. She pulled out 2 envelopes. One blue. One green. Eli. Mia. Come here, sweethearts. 2 children stood. A boy, maybe 10 with holes in both knees. A girl, maybe 8, with braids and a look of disbelief. They stepped forward slowly, like they didn't believe it was real. The principal handed each an envelope. This, she said, is a gift. A scholarship. A chance to go to school next year, with books, meals, and a safe place to grow. Eli opened his slowly, then looked up. Tears filled his eyes. But he didn't cry. He just nodded. Like it was too much to process. Mia looked frozen. Then suddenly burst out. Can I show this to my mom? The principal smiled. You can show it to anyone you love. The girl ran off down the hallway, waving the paper like it was a magic ticket. Eli stood still, gripping his envelope like it might disappear. He looked around. And for just a second, his eyes landed on Marcus. They didn't know each other. They never would. But the boy's face shifted. He gave a small, confused smile. Like somehow, he knew. Like somehow, it mattered. And something inside Marcus cracked wide open. His throat tightened. He stepped back quietly, turned into the hallway, and leaned against the wall. His chest heaved once. Then again. He couldn't stop it. Tears came. Not heavy. Not loud. But real. The kind that had been waiting for years. Helen found him a few minutes later. Hey, she said softly. You okay? He wiped his face. I forgot what this feels like. What? To do something that doesn't serve me. She leaned against the wall next to him. You want to stop? He shook his head. No. I want to keep going. That night, back in his apartment, he didn't pour a drink. Didn't check email. Didn't turn on the news. He sat by the window. Phone in hand. A photo on the screen. A screenshot from the school's security footage. Mia. Running down the hallway holding that green envelope. A blur of joy. He stared at it. Then did something he hadn't done in over a decade. He smiled. Not for business. Not for optics. Not for anyone. Just because. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was becoming someone his mother would recognize again. Marcus didn't bring a camera crew. Just himself, and Sarah, his longtime secretary, walking quietly behind him with a notepad and a folder. They stepped into the small school office like visitors, not executives. No suits. No announcements. Just a name on a clipboard, Better Days Fund. The room smelled like paper and instant coffee. And for once, it felt exactly right. The school they visited that day had peeling paint on the walls and a handmade sign near the entrance that read, Be kind. Be brave. Be you. A woman at the front desk looked up. You're here for the community program? Marcus nodded. First visit. Just observing today. She handed him a visitor badge and pointed down the hall. Sarah stayed by the door, quietly flipping through the documents Marcus had asked her to bring. School reports, staff notes, and a handwritten list of urgent needs. They walked past classrooms with broken blinds and chipped white boards. But the kids, They were fully alive. Marcus slowed down, peered into a room where a group of third graders were building towers from plastic cups. One boy shouted, "We beat the record." The teacher clapped. Marcus smiled just slightly. It wasn't about the record. It was the fact that someone was clapping for them. In the teacher's lounge, the air was thick with the smell of microwaved soup and overworked optimism. A young teacher stood by the window, rubbing her temples. Marcus approached. "Long day." She laughed softly. "They're all long." He gestured toward the group of kids outside. "They seem happy." She looked out too. "They are, until they go home." He didn't ask for more. He didn't need to. That evening, Marcus sat with Sarah at a diner near the highway. They ordered coffee and shared a slice of apple pie. She opened her folder. So far, 7 schools have submitted requests. Nothing big. Coats, books, hot lunches. Marcus looked at the list. Each item cost less than a steak at his favorite restaurant. He tapped the paper. "Fund all of them." Sarah hesitated. "You sure you don't want to prioritize?" He shook his head. "If a kid needs a coat, I don't need a report to justify it." The following week, the Better Days Fund rolled out its first initiative, direct response grants. No applications. No waiting lists. No red tape. Just immediate solutions to real problems based on what teachers and students said out loud, not what systems assumed. Marcus refused to let his name be printed anywhere. But he insisted on being present. He visited a rural school near the state border. No cafeteria. No library. One bus for the entire district. He sat in a circle with 4th graders, helping them cut shapes from construction paper. One little girl looked up and asked, "Do you live in a castle?" Marcus smiled. "No. Just a big building with too many windows." She nodded thoughtfully. "My grandma says castles are cold anyway." Later that day, the principal pulled him aside. "Marcus, you're not what I expected." "I get that a lot." "You could have done this all from a boardroom." He nodded. "But then I wouldn't have met your kids." She paused. Then asked, "What made you start this?" He thought for a moment. Then replied, "A little girl gave me a flower. And asked me if I was happy." The principal said nothing. She just placed her hand on his shoulder. And that said everything. As the weeks went on, Marcus visited 10 more schools. Inner-city, rural, reservation-based, migrant communities. He heard stories. He shook hands with kids who had never owned a backpack. He ate spaghetti on styrofoam trays. He rode on a school bus with no AC next to a boy who shared his lunch with his little sister. He stopped checking his calendar. Stopped bringing his phone. Started remembering names. Started listening. One day, at a school in the industrial district, a boy named Theo approached him after recess. Theo had a nervous twitch and spoke too fast. "Hey, Mr. Marcus?" "Yeah." Theo looked at the ground. "Do you think someone like me can build something?" Marcus crouched down. "Like what?" "A company. A business. Or something people remember." Marcus thought of his mother. Of all her late nights and early mornings. He looked Theo in the eyes. "Yes," he said. "Especially someone like you." Theo smiled. Not big, but real. And that was enough. That night, back in his apartment, Marcus stared at a wall filled with sticky notes. Each one had a first name. No last names. No titles. Just names. Each child he'd met. Each voice he'd heard. It looked chaotic. Messy. Alive. And for the first time in years. So did he. Marcus didn't realize it at first. The change wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It just settled in quietly like sunlight through a window you forgot you opened. One morning he woke up at 6 a.m. Not to check the market. Not for a meeting. But just because he wanted to see the sunrise. He stood by the window in his bare feet, holding coffee he brewed himself. No assistant. No alerts. Just a moment of silence that didn't feel empty anymore. He still worked. Still signed contracts. Still met with investors. But something had shifted. He didn't measure success by deals closed. He measured it by how he felt when he left the room. Was he proud? Was he present? Was he kind? Sarah noticed it first. "You stopped pacing," she said one day. Marcus looked up from his laptop. "I what?" "You used to walk the office like you were being chased. Now, you breathe." He smiled. "I guess I finally stopped running." The board noticed too. At first they were nervous. Less obsession over quarterly reports? More time in underfunded schools? But then, the company numbers surprised everyone. Turnover dropped. Team satisfaction rose. Recruitment surged, not just in volume but in quality. People wanted to work here. Because something about the company felt different. Human. Marcus started leaving handwritten notes for employees. Short ones. "You handled that call with grace. Your pitch made people feel seen. Thank you for showing up when no one else did." People kept them. Taped them to monitors. Framed them at their desks. Some even took them home. Not because he was the CEO, but because the words felt real. And that they'd been missing. One afternoon, a junior analyst stopped him in the elevator. "Mr. Weller?" He turned. "I just wanted to say, this place feels lighter now. I didn't think companies could change. But you did." Marcus nodded slowly. Then asked, "What made you stay?" The young man smiled. "You remembered my name." At night, Marcus started walking more. Not for fitness. Just to feel his feet touch ground. He stopped counting steps. Stopped checking stock prices before bed. He read again. Cooked a little. He even replanted the garden on his balcony, with real dirt, not outsourced contractors. And when he looked at the small patch of green in the corner of a glass tower, he thought, this doesn't need to impress anyone. It just needs to grow. But the biggest shift? He laughed more. Not because something was funny, but because it felt good. He didn't force conversation. He let it unfold. He didn't defend himself. He listened. He didn't try to be inspiring. He tried to be honest. And people responded. Then one Friday morning his assistant walked in with a small package. No return label. Just his name, handwritten in pencil. Inside, a paper star. Scuffed edges. Child's handwriting. "Thank you for making school not feel scary anymore. I don't want to disappear now." Marcus didn't cry. He just sat there. Let the quiet fill the room. And in that stillness, he realized he wasn't just helping kids find their place in the world. He was finding his too. The call came at 3:27 p.m. Sarah didn't knock. She just entered, holding her phone tightly. "It's Lily," she said. Marcus stood before she finished the sentence. The hospital felt colder than usual. Grace, Lily's grandmother, sat hunched in a waiting chair, wringing her hands. Her face looked pale, haunted. "They found a tumor," she whispered. "The doctors say it's serious. She needs surgery. Urgently." Marcus stepped into the ICU. Lily lay small and still, an oxygen tube taped under her nose. Machines beeped steadily. When she opened her eyes and saw him, she smiled faintly. "Hi, Mr. Marcus." He tried to smile back. "Hey, sunshine." Her voice was hoarse. "Am I gonna be okay?" He took her tiny hand. "You're not alone. That's a start." The doctor didn't sugarcoat anything. "The tumor is operable. But the procedure is highly complex. We need the best pediatric neurosurgeons. The full cost will exceed $800,000. Grace nearly collapsed in her chair. Marcus clenched his jaw. "What if I cover it?" The doctor hesitated. "She doesn't have insurance. Hospital policy requires upfront payment in full." "I understand. I'll figure something out." Back in his car, Marcus opened the app to check his private accounts. His fingers paused. Over the past year, he had funneled most of his savings into building scholarship programs, rebuilding community centers, covering anonymous tuition payments. His financial advisor had warned him. He hadn't listened. Now, even liquidating everything wouldn't reach $800,000. His throat tightened. Not now. Not when Lily needed him most. There was one option left. The company's emergency liquidity reserve. But touching that would mean war. No. Absolutely not. The board meeting had barely started when the first objection exploded across the table. "This fund is for systemic risk," a CFO snapped. Recession protection, hostile takeover defense. Not saving children. Marcus stood at the head of the room, silent. We sympathize, Marcus, said another. But this is business. If we do this for one girl, what's next? Nephews? Cousins? A friend's dog? Laughter. Cold. Disconnected. He looked at Sarah. She wasn't laughing. You knew they'd say no, Sarah told him later in his office. He nodded. Then why try? Because someone needed to remind them who we are. She looked at him carefully. Marcus, we could sell shares. Pull from your assets. Maybe a loan? Even combined, it's not enough. And I won't use investor capital. She lowered her voice. Then what now? He stared out the window. The city looked different. Smaller. Quieter. I'll think of something, he said. But his voice wavered. And Sarah heard it. The first crack in the man who always had an answer. That night, Marcus sat alone in the office, lights off. Just him, the city, and the ticking clock. He scrolled through photos on his phone. Lily holding a paper star. Lily painting his office window. Lily waving goodbye that day barefoot on the curb. He looked at his reflection. And whispered, there has to be another way. Fade to black. Marcus didn't sleep. He spent the night calculating, calling, and coordinating. Every bank. Every liquid asset. By sunrise, he had scraped together $126,000. Not enough. Not even close. But it was all he had. We're short by nearly $600,000, Sarah said. Even with your contribution. Marcus stared out the hospital window. Lily was still in ICU. The tumor was growing. We need the operation within 48 hours, the doctor warned. After that, we risk losing her. Marcus turned to Sarah. Then we asked for help. From who? Everyone. At 9 a.m., Sarah posted a video to the company's social accounts. Marcus sat beside her, holding the paper star Lily had made. He spoke into the camera. This is Lily. She's 6. She sells flowers on the street. One day she asked me something no one else had ever asked. Are you happy? That question changed my life. Now I'm asking you to help save hers. The post included a donation link, medical proof, a transparent goal. Then they waited. 1 hour. $3,100. 2 hours. $18,000. By evening they had over $300,000. Messages poured in. I'm a single mom. Only $5, but I hope it helps. My son beat brain cancer last year. Paying it forward. She reminds me of my little sister. By midnight they hit $826,000. Marcus quietly added the rest. No press release. No gala. Just a hospital form. A signature. And a surgery scheduled for dawn. The operating room lights flicked on at 6:12 a.m. Sarah held Grace's trembling hands in the waiting room. Marcus sat silently. Time slowed. Then froze. At 9:47 a.m. the surgeon stepped out. Pulled off his mask. Smiled. She made it. Grace sobbed. Marcus exhaled. Sarah hugged him without a word. The story spread. First on local news. Then national morning shows. Then international outlets. Millionaire risks fortune to save street girl. The CEO who listened to a flower child. What happens when kindness goes viral? The donation page stayed up. By the end of the week, it had raised $2.3 million. Every cent went to the New Lily Hope Foundation, a nonprofit focused on pediatric care for uninsured families. Back at the hospital, Lily opened her eyes. Did I miss anything? Marcus smiled. Just everything. She giggled, then frowned. Did it cost a lot? He leaned forward. Not as much as losing you would have. She reached out, gently placed the paper star in his hand. Then you better keep this safe. He nodded. Always. The world kept turning. But for Marcus, something had changed. Not just the headlines. Not the fame. It was the people. The janitor who left a note. You reminded me of what matters. The intern who burst into tears after donating her lunch money. The board member who quietly sent $100,000 without a name attached. and the little girl who reminded a CEO what a heart is for. Weeks passed. The office returned to normal. Phones rang. Emails pinged. Deals closed. But something was different. Not in the air. In Marcus. He arrived earlier. Left later. Not to work longer hours. But to walk the halls. Talk to his people. Learn their stories. He stopped by the security desk just to ask, "How's your son doing in college?" He brought coffee to the janitor. He joined the interns for lunch. No fanfare. No camera. Just presence. One morning he asked Sarah to cancel all his meetings. "Everything?" She blinked. "Yeah. I need to go somewhere." She didn't ask where. But she smiled. Marcus stood on the same street corner where he first met Lily. No suit. No driver. Just jeans, a hoodie, and a bag of sandwiches. He handed one to a teenage boy selling candy. Then another to a woman holding a cardboard sign. Then he just sat. Watching. Listening. He saw things differently now. Not problems. People. Later that day he gave a talk at a small community school. The kids didn't know he was famous. They just knew he helped Lily. "What made you change?" a girl asked. Marcus paused. "She asked me if I was happy. I couldn't answer. That scared me more than any boardroom fight ever could." "Are you happy now?" someone shouted. He smiled. "I'm learning how." That night, Marcus sat at his desk, writing a letter to his younger self. "You'll chase money, applause, status. And when you get it, you'll feel empty. One day, a child will ask a question you can't answer. That moment will crack you open. Let it. Because on the other side is something better. Peace. Connection. Meaning. Real success isn't building empires. It's building lives." He sealed the letter. Placed it in his desk drawer. Not to send. But to remember. 2 weeks later, the company launched a new program. 1% Forward. Every employee could donate 1% of their workweek to community service. The company paid for the time. No quotas. No PR campaigns. Just people helping people. Participation skyrocketed. Some built houses. Some read to kids. Some just sat with lonely seniors. The board was stunned. Morale improved. So did revenue. Turns out, people work harder when they believe in something bigger than numbers. At the next quarterly meeting, Marcus took the stage. No slides. Just a single photo of Lily smiling, holding her paper star. "This used to be a company that made money. Now we make meaning." Applause. Tears. Even from the board. Later, Sarah asked, "Was it worth it?" Marcus looked at her. "I used to think happiness came from winning. Now I know it comes from giving." He paused. "And the funny thing? The more you give, the more whole you feel." She nodded. "So what's next?" He looked down at the star in his hand. "We keep going." 1 year later, Marcus stood quietly in front of the school he helped build. Children's laughter echoed through the yard as tiny feet raced across the dew-covered grass. He said nothing. Just smiled. Because sometimes, the most powerful moments don't need words. Do you believe a single act of kindness can change a life? What do you think? Should she forgive him? Don't miss the next chapter of their story. If this story moved something in you, subscribe to Soul Tales for more real, emotional stories that speak to the heart. And hey, drop a comment, share your thoughts, and pass it on. Because someone out there might need this more than you know.